Hello, hello, hello. It is me again, Sam. Today we're going to be looking at the US natal chart with the transit of the exact moment of when we started dropping bombs and the Iran war started. I want to look at 5 things that really kind of stuck out to me with this, and I'll try to get through it as fast as I can. But this all took place on February 28th, 2026, about 10 a.m. local time in Iran. So, the first part, somewhat of a phantom crusade. Transit Neptune in Aries, opposition natal midheaven in Libra, with like 0.02 of a degree applying. Transit Saturn in Aries, opposition natal midheaven in Libra. So, you could not engineer a more surgical strike against a nation's public identity if you spent a century calibrating. The midheaven is the mask a country wears when it stands before the world and declares, "This is what I am for." And the Sibley, for those of you who don't know, the Sibley is just the American birth moment, the natal chart. In Libra, has spent 250 years insisting that America exists to balance, to arbitrate, to hold the scales. Neptune in Aries arrived at the opposite pole with a lit torch and a blindfold, and at the exact moment the first tomahawk left its tube, it was close enough to kiss. This is obliteration of purpose. The United States does not know why it started this war. The stated reasons, nuclear proliferation, humanitarian outrage, are not lies exactly. They are dreams. They possess the internal logic of dreams, the way a dream can feel urgent and coherent until you wake and try to write it down and discover it was smoke arranged in the shape of some sort of story. Neptune in Aries is the phantom crusade, holy war without holiness, aggression robed in transcendence. The administration believes with a convert's fervor that it is doing something noble. The fervor is real, but the nobility is the dream. But Neptune did not come along alone. Saturn crossed this same opposition first, laid its architecture of cold intention, and Neptune followed to erase the fingerprints. 2 maleficates. Maleficates. I don't know why I always have a hard time pronouncing that. Working the same axis within a single degree is not fog. It's method. Saturn in Aries opposing the Libra midheaven is the state as executioner. Not blind, but purposeful, signing the warrant while the defendant still testifies. While Iran's diplomats negotiated, while the foreign minister spoke of a historic breakthrough to the press, Netanyahu phoned Trump with the coordinates of Khamenei's meeting. The talks were not abandoned, they were used. The architecture of peace repurposed as a delivery system for war. Neptune applying means the fog thickens. War aims will mutate. Victory conditions will become vapor. The press conferences will grow longer and say less. And Saturn beneath the fog ensures that every act of calculated treachery will be framed sincerely as regrettable necessity, because the nation that built the international legal order has taken a hammer to its own courthouse, and Neptune has already taught it to forget it was even ever holding the hammer at all. So, second part, the spent match. Transit Mars in Aquarius conjunct natal moon in Aquarius. The moon in a national chart is not sentiment. It is like the animal body of the population. The thing that flinches before the mind can think. The reflex of belonging and fear and tribal love. Mars walked across it, left a blade mark, and then moved on. The conjunction is separating. The fire was lit before the first missile was launched. Read the timeline and it writes itself. Tens of thousands of Iranian protesters massacred in January. Trump's declaration that help is on the way. The emotional wave, the outrage, the identification with the oppressed. That particular American ache that always precedes American violence. Crested before February 28. Mars hit the moon and the nation's gut clenched with the need to do something, because inaction feels like a species of death to a country that has fused its identity with action. But Mars separates right now. The trigger was pulled after the peak. Genuine reaction or reactive wars erupt when Mars applies. The pressure mounts, the pot boils over. A separating conjunction is the signal of orchestration. Someone watched the pot boil, waited for it to cool just enough to be handled, and poured it precisely where they intended. The emotional technology is visible in retrospect. The slaughtered protesters supplied the moral accelerant. The images did their ancient work on the American conscience, and the war was launched in the cooling afterglow of public feeling and not at its crest. Aquarius does not stay loyal to an emotion once the emotion stops making intellectual sense. The people will turn. Not slowly, not with the gradual erosion of the Cancerian disillusionment, but with the cold, surgical clarity that Aquarius specializes in. The administration has a window, and it is not a very big one. The emotional fuel is already spent, and they are running on fumes of manufactured urgency. When the public pivots, it will pivot with the detachment that bewilders the war's architects, because they mistook a mood for a mandate. So, number 3, the machine that secreted a war. Transits Uranus in Taurus, trine natal Pluto in Capricorn. 0.09 of a degree separating. Nearly partile. And a trine, which is precisely what should terrify you. Squares and oppositions announce themselves. They produce crisis. Visible rupture, the drama of resistance. A trine between Uranus and Pluto does something far worse. It lets the transformation happen without friction. The machinery of institutional power restructure itself with the lubricated ease of a well-maintained engine, and no one outside the engine room hears anything. Pluto in Capricorn is the deep state in the truest sense. Not the conspiracy theory, but the actual ancient calcified architecture of concentrated power, procurement networks, intelligence hierarchies, and the revolving door between Pentagon and defense contractor, the financial apparatus that underwrites American empire. Uranus in Taurus is sudden material disruption, markets convulsing, the Strait of Hormuz weaponized, the price of oil becoming a lever that reorganizes global trade. The trine says these forces are calibrating. Every spike in crude fills certain coffers. Every shattered supply chain opens a vacuum that specific institutions are already positioned to fill. The separating orb reveals that the structural repositioning preceded the first bomb. The largest military buildup since the 2003 invasion does not materialize in weeks. It materializes over months of quiet procurement, contracts signed in unremarkable offices, logistic chains assembled by people who have never appeared on a camera. By the time the order was given, the machine had already built itself a war. It merely needed a hand to press the button. The United States will achieve material objectives from this conflict. Targets will be destroyed. The defense architecture will be engorged once again. Certain energy markets will be reshaped to lasting American advantage. But Uranus despises models, even when it cooperates with them. The cascading second and third order effects, gas above $4, Qatar hemorrhaging 17% of its liquid natural gas capacity, Gulf infrastructure in ruins will breed consequences that no simulation could predict. The machine will get what it ordered, but it will also get in equal measure what it did not. The beautiful lie. Transit Venus in Pisces, opposition natal Neptune in Virgo. 600 of a degree applying. The most beautiful lie has not been told yet. Venus-Neptune in opposition is the astrology of enchantment so complete that the enchanted cannot conceive of its existence. You fall in love with your own reflection and mistake it for another face. Venus in Pisces is America at its most seductive to itself, the selfless liberator, the nation that spends blood and treasure not for empire, but for the idea of freedom. Sound familiar? Across the axis, natal Neptune in Mercury. Natal Neptune in Virgo catches the projection and holds it up like a mirror, and the nation stares into it and sees precisely what it needs to see: service duty, practical virtue, cost-benefit analysis that always resolves in favor of the righteous. This is the aspect of the hidden invoice. The true financial burden is wrapped in gauze. The nature of the alliance with Israel, who benefits, who bears the weight, who made promises to whom in windowless in rooms, is submerged in Piscean iridescence. The diplomatic wreckage, the Gulf states absorbing Iranians' retaliation they never asked for, European allies issuing statements that amount to genteel horror, all processed through a filter that turns hard numbers into watercolors. Venus is applying at 6/100ths of a degree. The opposition is days from perfection. When it peaks, something will surface. A cost, a secret agreement, a figure that cannot be spun, and the romantic narrative will meet an invoice, and the invoice will win. Not catastrophically. Pisces doesn't shatter, it dissolves. But somewhere in the accounting, the enchantments will thin just enough for light to pass through. And what the light reveals will be ordinary and brutal, that this war cost more than anyone was told. Benefits fewer than anyone admits, and was sold to the public in a currency that does not exist. Last but not least, we got number 5, the wound that steered the hand. Transit Chiron in Aries square natal Mercury in Cancer. Applying. Chiron does not falsify. Chiron distorts through pain. The wound healer squaring the nation's Mercury, its voice, its press, its intelligence apparatus, its capacity for rational self-narration is not the aspect of manufactured evidence. It is something more insidious, the aspect of intelligence bent by trauma so old the analyst no longer recognizes it as trauma. The IAEA found no evidence of an organized weapons program. American intelligence assessed Iran's long-range missile capability was a decade away. The information was available. It was not hidden. It simply could not penetrate the wound. Chiron and Aries, the agony of the warrior whose action fails to redeem, squared Mercury in Cancer, and the nation heard that the wound needed it to hear. The hostage crisis, the Marine barracks in Beirut, 9/11, decades of shadow war, every briefing that reached the president's deck passed through the nervous system of a country still carrying unmetabolized anguish. And the anguish bent the data toward the conclusion it required. Mercury in Cancer tells stories the way a mother tells stories, to protect, to comfort, to make the darkness small enough to manage. We had to act. The threat was imminent. We are keeping our children safe. Chiron cracking this voice open exposes the fear underneath. And the fear is not of Iran. It's older than Iran. It is the fear of a country that has never been invaded on its own soil, discovering over and over that its power cannot purchase the safety it was promised, that oceans and carriers and the largest arsenal in human history cannot close the distance between what it is and what it is terrified of becoming. Applying at 11/100ths of a degree, the reckoning is ahead. When the intelligence failures surface and Chiron is merciless in its slow insistence on exposure, they will arrive not as political scandal, but as grief. The species of grief particular to a nation realizing it did this not because it had to, but because it couldn't stop itself, because the wound was steering and everyone called it strategy. So one last thing I want to talk about here. Lilith in the 12th. One final signature, quieter than the rest. Transit Lilith in Sagittarius sits in the natal 12th house, trining the North Node in Leo at 11 minutes of arc. The 12th house is where a nation buries what it can't face. Lilith there is the shadow of the righteous, cruelty sanctified so thoroughly that the hand wielding it feels calm. A country that negotiates peace on Tuesday and assassinates the negotiating partner's spiritual leader on Saturday, along with his family, in his home, is not a country that made a difficult strategic choice. It is a country that has disassociated. The left hand of the diplomacy genuinely does not know what the right hand of the military is doing. Not because the information is classified, but because knowing would crack a self-image the entire national psyche is organized to protect. The trine to the North Node is the cruelest detail. The shadow serves the destiny. The cruelty is not incidental to American purpose. It is structural. The nation moves towards its fate through its capacity for righteous violence, and the violence remains righteous precisely because it is never examined. Pull back far enough, and the pattern resolves into a single sentence. This is a chart of a nation that has perfected the art of committing atrocities with a clear conscience. Because the conscience has been locked in a room it no longer knows exists. The sky does not say this war will end quickly. Neptune on the midheaven is slow, dissolving, foggy. But it does say the truth. When it arrives, will arrive as disillusionment, which is, if you take Neptune seriously, the only clarity it really kind of ever offers. And the cost, as always, with the 12th house is the soul. And as always with Lilith, the soul doesn't know it's paying. So this is just an article I had written for my Substack. So if you want to go read it, it's over there. This is a war that I feel like is stupid. Everybody that I know, because I was a former Marine. So I'm a little bit more savvy than your average person when it comes to these military matters, because I had kind of been like an inside look to it. And everybody that I know that did is looking at this and thinking how stupid it is. Like, what are we doing? Why is this happening? Like, people can't make really heads or tails of exactly what is going on here. The strategy that we're using, how we went off sort of completely unprepared and totally half-cocked, spending most of our most biggest long-range expensive munitions, while our enemy, Iran, has been just using its old broken shit, getting us to waste all our ammo or our defense missiles on it, who has proven to not be destroyed and is very much capable of defending itself. The targeting videos that we've gotten back of them blowing up like bulldozers, it's embarrassing. It's like, what the fuck are you doing? When you're blowing up bulldozers, it means you're running out of things to blow up. And there's like a disconnect between the top and the bottom. The bottom are the ones that know what's going on, the ones that are actually pulling the trigger, and the top, like the president and the chiefs of staff, are just looking at how many bombs that we're dropping, and they're seeing explosions, and they think that's a good thing. They think that somehow dropping a lot of bombs on an enemy is going to win, when it never really has. I mean, just look at I feel like this war is shaping up to be like a modern, more technologically advanced Vietnam War. And the I don't they want to put boots on the ground. How and why and what the target is and what's the point? Iran's listen, I can ramble about this all day. So if you stuck by this long, I appreciate it. This is just the me going off the cuff here with it. It's not going to be good. If we do get boots on the ground, it's going to be a bloodbath. And basically, no one that I know that wants this. Sure, the Iranian government sucks. I hate the Iranian government just as much as the fucking people of Iran hate the Iranian government. But what we're doing here is, it's going to be like nothing we've ever seen before. It's going to be embarrassing. We have somehow, we've tarnished our name. What honor we did have left is basically gone. Our allies everywhere are going like, wait, what's going on here? Why is this happening? And honestly, I feel like the belligerence, the berserk belligerence of Israel is a huge factor here. And I think that I was thinking about doing the next video from Iran's perspective, but I'm actually going to be looking at the Israeli chart of when this all started to kind of get a better clue, because honestly, the only fucking reason why we're involved with this shit over there with them, I feel like, is because Israel is the one pulling the strings on everything. So, I appreciate you sticking around this long. Like and subscribe, all that good shit, and I'll see you guys in the next video.